For the next part of this build, we're going to be attaching the axle and the axle discs to the antenna frame. Now, according to the instructions that came to the kit, you have to measure a distance of approximately 1/16 of an inch between the edge of the disc and the edge of the top part of the antenna. Okay, now I already measured this one out and it's pretty close, and I don't think it's that critical. So as long as you're close to a 1/16 of an inch, I think you're gonna do good, as long as you're not drastically off, okay? For the next phase of the build, we're going to cut the slots on the top shell to accommodate the antenna. Is cut 2 small pieces of blue masking tape and tape them to both corners of the communicator. Pretending that this is the edge of the table, you're going to put the edge of the antenna so it meets the edge of the table, and then you're going to push down on the axle and bend the disc wheels downward, okay? And we'll give it a slight more bend going down. This way the holes for the axle are just, those holes are for the antenna stop, by the way, in case you're wondering. We're talking about the top holes right here, okay? So when we bend it down, those holes will be visible right below the surface of the top shell, the bottom of the top shell right there. Okay, we have the antenna stop inside the hinge disc, and like before, I put a small drop of flux on the tip of the antenna stop, inserted it, and I put a small piece of solder on the opposite side. And now we're going to heat up the disc over here until that little piece of solder melts. You don't need much solder in there, that's for sure. Okay, before we go any further with the antenna, I'm going to now cut some holes into the top shell of the communicator. The first one I'm going to cut is for the round moire bezel. Okay, this particular kit has a indentation for you to make your cut, okay? And for this, I'm gonna use a compass cutter.
And a rooster crows, see now, and a rooster crows, see now, and a gander lies, see now, and a gander lies, see now. Sea lion, woman, sea lion, she drank coffee, sea lion, she drank tea, sea lion, and a gander lies. And again the light, sea lion woman, sea lion, sea lion woman, sea lion. She drank coffee, sea lion, she drank tea, sea lion. And again the light, sea lion, and again the light, sea lion.
And what I'm going to do is I'm going to heat up a needle, and I'm going to punch a hole through the back of the top shell where the tabs stick out for these holes, rather than trying to start a hole off on the front where these indentations are. So I'm hoping that this technique will be a little more precise, and I'll avoid the mistake I made on my first build. Okay, so okay, that looks good. Now let's see if it goes through. Perfect. Good, it went through. Okay.
And again the light, and the rooster crows, C-line, and again the night, C-line. C-line, woman, C-line, she drank coffee, C-line, she drank tea, C-line, and again the night, C-line, and again the night, C-line, and again the night, C-line.
And there you have it. Those holes look pretty good, and I'm very happy with that result. I was kind of worried I was gonna make the same mistake I did on my first build, but those look perfectly even and perfectly spaced. Okay, quite pleased with that. Okay, I think we can move forward now. What to do next? I think maybe we shall, we gotta epoxy the antenna grill to the plate. So I'm gonna clean up here a little bit, and then we're gonna take care of that. We're ready to mix our 2-part epoxy JB Quick Weld together. I have to work fast because I'm running out of tape here. Okay, so we're gonna mix up that epoxy real good. Try to be very neat about this. Don't let any of the epoxy go near the actual wheel. You don't want that. And you don't want the epoxy to seep out of the slots that you cut, so you want to stay away from there as well. And you want to not let the epoxy interfere with the antenna stop as well, so you got to watch where you're putting this. While we have the epoxy drying, I thought it would be a very good time to start cannibalizing the electronics from the Hallmark Communicator. This is the neat little device that we're going to take the electronics from to put in our build, so it makes the chirping sound when we open it.
And the rooster crows, C-line, and again the night, C-line, and the rooster crows, C-line, and again the night, C-line. C-line, woman, C-line, she drank coffee, C-line, she drank tea, C-line, and again the night, C-line.
And here's what the assembly looks like when it's removed. You have your speaker here, you have your switch, and you have your battery terminal. Okay? Now you could see the epoxy is on the axle. Okay, but what I forgot to do was line the bottom shell up with the top shell before this was put into place. Make my marks on the back shell so then I could cut the slots for the hinge discs. So I'm gonna have to do this to the best of my... We had to cut notches into the mid plate, as you see. I had to cut notches in there, well, not cut, but file notches in there using an ordinary file so that the mid plate would then accommodate the axle, as you could see. Now would be a good a time as any to install the T-hubs. Snug the grill into the box we cut earlier, so it's nice and flush. And now we're gonna put a little contact cement again on the plate and glue it to the top shell. So we're gonna do that right now.